Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Blood Brothers podcast. Tonight, we're missing a Sean, but we've definitely got a Rob.
Hello there.
Hello there. And tonight, in our guys' newly professional podcast, after 2 years at it, I'm going to read a biography for our guest. And it's a lovely one. So, Lucy Foley is the #1 Sunday Times best-selling author of The Hunting Party and The Guest List, with 2.5 million copies sold worldwide. Amazing. It doesn't say amazing here, but it is. Lucy's thrillers have also hit the New York Times and the Irish Times bestsellers list, been shortlisted for the Crime and Thriller Book of the Year award at the British Book Awards, selected as one of the Times and Sunday Times Crime Books of the Year, and the guest list was a Reese's Book Club choice. Lucy's novels have been translated into multiple languages, and her journalism has appeared in publications such as Sunday Times, Style, Grazia, ES Magazine, Vogue US, Elle, Tatler, Marie Claire, and more. What a list. Hello, Lucy. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
It's lovely. And thank you so much. Now, we are here because in a few short weeks, and no one can see this, but we're both holding it up, but the Paris apartment is coming out. And I've been worrying because I say Paris like this, but I'm sure your accent sounds nicer.
I love it. I love the way you say it. It's brilliant. Keep saying
it. We got it a few weeks ago, Rob, and it's one of the ones that I started off reading, and because the chapters are so short and you're dragged into it, you're halfway through it before you know, and I loved it.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Please, for the listeners, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So it's a murder mystery and kind of love letter to Paris all in one, I suppose you could say, and a sort of exploration of the grime beneath the guilt. But Jess is our protagonist. She turns up to stay with her brother Ben in Paris. It's this rather swanky apartment building that he's been living in. But when she arrives, Ben is missing. And she begins to suspect from various clues in his apartment that something's happened to him, and that one of her new neighbors, the other people that live in this apartment building, might have something to do with it, because they're all acting rather suspiciously. So she pulls a thread and things go on a rather strange and dark journey. And it's sort of, if you imagine one of those kind of old apartment buildings that wraps around a central courtyard so everyone can see into everyone else's apartment building. So there's a sort of curtain twitching, voyeuristic thing going on, which I love writing about.
Absolutely amazing. The cast of characters here is so rich, Lucy. How did you keep tabs on them and track of them? But not just that, but how did you? They all felt so blindingly real to me. How did you achieve that as well? I mean, this is going to be such a huge hit as well, everyone. You know, it really, really is. So how did you do this?
Well, that's so kind. I'm glad people can't see me blushing, but thank you. That's really kind. I mean, I think I'm kind of greedy. I love as a writer working with multiple narrators. It means that I can sort of hop, in my writing journey, I can kind of hop from one voice to another, depending on who I'm feeling like I'm sort of wanting to write that day. But it also, this sounds a bit crazy, but I sort of feel like I live with their voices in my head for quite a long time, almost before I start writing, actually. So there's that. But I think, to be honest, it's always a question as a writer of how much is in your head versus how much have you actually put on the page. And often I kind of think with that first draft, I'm like, of course, they're all really clear and they all sound really different and they're really kind of living and breathing people like they feel like they are in my head. But actually, that's quite often not the case with that first draft. And it's a question of sort of layering over the course of several drafts, kind of different sort of idiosyncrasies into the way people speak, just layering in more and more and more character to make sure that they feel as fully fleshed out as they feel in my head. So it's a sort of, it's always a work in progress, I think.
Wow. So it's not, it's like a constant massaging these characters almost into the shape that you want them to be in, almost. Would that be right?
Totally. And I'm lucky that I have a really good editor, and she'll say to me, she'll kind of prompt me very gently, but she'll say, like, I know there's more there than is on the page, and I'm like, yeah, I know what their shoe size is and what they'd like order on Deliveroo and all of that, but like it's always that question of like, how much do you put in the book and how much do you hold back? So it's about getting that kind of balance right.
That's amazing. So what kind of percentage do you think of the character that you've built in a book? I'm really interested in this, actually. In a book that's so strong on character, what percentage do you think is in the book? Sorry, listeners, that's what I'm holding up. And what percentage do you think is still left in your head?
I'm terrible at maths. I'll probably say something like 50% in the book, and then 70% is, maybe 50-50, I think.
Do you think so?
It's a nice round, I can cope with that. But I think probably because ultimately, I think character is so important in all sorts of fiction. I think it's really important in crime fiction. I think that plot should feel like it's driven by character, but at the same time, you want like a really stonking plot in there, and you can't waffle on indefinitely, in terms of your character study.
Yeah, I mean, pace here as well is another thing that is just, it's electric. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah.
It is.
That's what I was wanting to know, actually, with like, as a reader, it was really clear, but with the writer side of my brain was going, how has she done this, and how? So, was there a big plan behind it, or do you just sort of write and see how it goes?
A bit of both. So I'm naturally a really disorganized person. So I know that, and I think I'm probably quite a wasteful writer, but I'll come back to that because I think it's actually important for me to be wasteful, and but I know that it's important for me to try and plot things out as carefully as possible beforehand. And this sort of book that that I'm writing, it should feel in a way like a sort of puzzle box for the reader to kind of undo and try and do back together, and that really when they get to the end of the book that they see that kind of all the clues were laid for them along the way, so the breadcrumbs were there if they knew where to spot them. So the plot is really important, but that said, however carefully I plot, when I actually start writing, things start changing, and you realize that perhaps there's a better way of doing things, or actually the way that you planned for them feels a little bit like you're trying to kind of shoehorn something in that doesn't feel right in terms of character. In every thriller that I've written, the identity of the murderer has changed. So that's quite a big one. But I think as a writer, you need to leave room for those sort of surprises along the way, because to me, that's almost where the kind of really exciting creative stuff comes in.
So I'm sorry. So you go, Chris. I've got a head scratcher in there.
Is that about the murderer changing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so before when you've decided on the first instant, has something while you've been writing changed it, or why have you decided to change who it was?
In terms of the murderer.
Mm-hmm.
I've just realized sort of probably a third of the way into writing each time, no, there's a much more exciting way to do this. Wouldn't it be great if so-and-so did it instead? And I kind of feel that if I'm surprised as the writer, hopefully the reader will be surprised as well.
Yeah.
I think that definitely comes across. I've never had that where the identity of the murderer has changed. I've had it where, because if you like, I like to build characters too, and perhaps not as, that stunning depth you talked about before. And this is another one of those, Chris, where this is learning for me. I feel like I'm
absolutely.
in school here. Taking notes here. But like that kind of thing where you build the characters so much that they do things by themselves, like totally involuntarily yourself. Like it's like you're trying to keep them in check, but they want to do their own thing and that kind of thing. And so I've gone into writing something and I didn't know who did it right until towards the end, and it was just like, I did it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've never had it. I've been writing it convinced it was one person, and then it turns out to be someone else.
It's quite a strange experience as a writer, though, isn't it? It's sort of, you realize, obviously, these people are, these characters are figments of your imagination, but they do take on a life of their own. It's a weird, wonderful experience.
Yeah. Do you curse when that happens because it means you have to go back and do lots of reworking, or are you happy that you've had that little strike of inspiration?
No, I mean, for me, those are the kind of goosebump moments where you think, something exciting is happening here. I'm not fully in control, but I'm going to go with it. I'm loving it. I did also read recently, can't remember where I read this, but apparently Agatha Christie didn't always know. I'm not sure she changed the identity of the murderer, but she didn't always know when she was writing who done it. And I would have assumed that she would plot everything out, to the letter, because she's sort of the, grand arm of this book. But I found that quite reassuring, actually.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Like, well, if it works for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm always trying to justify my own mess.
Something that's come across really obviously, though, and I hope I'm right about this, is you clearly love what you do. Would that be right in saying that? I mean, you speak with such passion and enthusiasm about like the process of writing.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely love it. It is a kind of pinch me thing, isn't it? It's like I do, I make up stories. That's what I do. Isn't that great? I think I'm never happier. That sort of happiest part of the writing journey for me is probably sitting in a cafe, because I love working in cafes, with my notebook, and just kind of that really like early, like free flowing first draft. You're making loads of mistakes along the way. Actually, I'm not sure writers write like, I'm sure there are some writers that kind of every word that goes down is, absolutely word perfect. But I love just kind of getting stuck in and knowing that I'll probably come back and maybe not even use any of this later, but just feeling my way into the story.
So
joyful.
Cool. Yeah. And you were a fiction editor yourself beforehand, weren't you? How has that helped your writing process?
Well, I suppose I naively thought it would help a lot more than it has. I think I thought, well, I'll be able to, very objectively edit my own work. And of course, that's not the case. As the writer, you're always far too close to it. You can't see the wood for the trees, editorially sometimes. But I think what it has given me is an understanding of the importance of that editor-writer relationship, editor-author relationship. And I've got a really great editor who I really trust. And we've worked together across 6 books, actually. So 3 historicals and 3 thrillers. And that editing process is probably in some ways the part of the process that I love the least, because it's like difficult and you're being like really stretched and it's kind of messy and you're having to kill your darlings, but it's so important. And I think that's where the book is made, really. That's like where it's forged.
Yeah,
definitely.
And you mentioned your historical, is that something, because those came first, was that your like passion? Is that what you wanted to go for, or what was your way into it?
Well, it's interesting talking about having been an editor before. I think in a way that was the other thing that's kind of fed into my writing, is that I've always tried. Well, I came to writing from reading and really being a professional reader. And I think I've always tried to write the book that I, as a reader and as an editor, would want to discover. So with the historicals, that was the book that I kind of wanted to read at the time. I wanted to, and I read really widely. I think like lots of readers, I don't really necessarily think in terms of genre. I just want a really good story with some great twists and turns along the way, and great character. And so that's what I was doing with historicals. And then I had this idea that I really wanted to read a sort of modern take on the classic golden age sort of murder mystery, closed circle murder mystery. And so that's what I then tried to do with The Hunting Party. But there wasn't really any kind of conscious, like, and now I'm going to change genre along the way. It was like, I want to have a go at this other kind of book and see how that feels.
Oh, that's brilliant. And which kind of leads us on, Rob, to it usually comes later on in the podcast, but it feels like an appropriate time.
Yeah, about what genre you would consider. Yeah, I always wonder what other writers, like we all get sort of whether we like it or we don't, we all get put into little pigeonholes, don't we? Of like, oh, they write this and they write that. And it can work in your favor. It could also work, I think, personally to our detriment at times. But if there was another genre that you could have a go at, now that you've cracked history and thriller, historical and thriller,
not sure about
that. Where would you go next?
So I would love to have a go at writing a kind of 5 seconds in the future, I think it's called, sci-fi. So not kind of not like really high concept, like loads of world building, but like a kind of Black Mirror-esque, shining a light on our kind of own society and culture via writing something that sort of feels, like it could happen sort of 5 seconds in the future.
Like almost like 2 to 5 years ahead of where we are now.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. If certain circumstances were allowed to play out or whatever, and see where we would end up at.
Exactly.
That with the way things are changing so much all the time, I mean, sort of socially and politically, that genre really terrifies me now, because it's like, is this the future? No.
Me too. And that would be the thing that would probably stop me from writing it. It would be too, I mean, I say this as someone that writes murder mysteries, but it would be too kind of anxiety inducing, I think.
And I think it would be very easy to go very dark as well, because the ones of those that I've read that have been so, they've all been so brilliant, but Sarah Moorhead's Witness X was amazing at being just in the future. Christina Dalsher's work, Vox and Q, I thought those scared me to death. And was it Last as well? Hannah Jameson.
The Last, that was such a great mashup.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, and like all of them, like, I don't want to, but I have to read. I have to read where this is going. Yeah. Please do it. And then we can say, at least then we can say we had the exclusive. That Lucy Foley broke it to us on air that she was going to write this thing.
And what is next then?
So I am just putting the finishing touches on a short story for the new Miss Marple collection that's coming out at the end. Autumn this year. So it's a really great. I'm really privileged to be in such great company. So it's a great lineup of writers like Kate Moss, Val McDermid, Rita St. Mitchell, Ellie Griffiths. Like there's some of my real writing heroes on there. So it's great thing to be part of. So just finishing that, and then I am also just making a start on the new book, which it almost feels like too early to be talking about it and jinxing it, but it's got kind of some Wicker Man elements in it, and kind of us and them, small village stuff. Having a lot of fun with it.
Oh, I can't imagine. That's like proper sandbox stuff, isn't it? Because you can just go to town with the characters on the thing like that, can't you?
Go really weird and dark.
yeah.
Having to like hold myself back.
Don't, please don't.
We have a nice question from Elizabeth, who says she loves your work, which is nice. But she said, what's the most difficult part of the writing process for you?
Oh, great question. I think it's that killing your darlings thing, and thinking about all the hours you spent writing these scenes or these passages that are just then, hitting the cutting room floor. It's difficult. But I think it was actually Maggie O'Farrell that described all that extra stuff that you write if you're a kind of slightly sort of wasteful, in inverted commas, writer like me. She described it as scaffolding that you kind of need to have around your central story that you kind of then remove to reveal this beautiful, hopefully, structure within. And I found that so comforting, because I think I do get rid of a lot of stuff, but I kind of need it to write my way into the story.
Is that what you mean when you say wasteful?
Yeah,
right.
It's those thousands and thousands of words that you get rid of. But at the same time, I think I'm a relatively fast writer, so I think I produce quite a lot of stuff. And then, so I guess my kind of daily word count that I want to get to is about 2,000 words a day. Whereas I know other writers who like absolutely hone every sentence from the very beginning are probably working more like 500 words a day. So I suppose, yeah, I'm creating a lot to get rid of a lot.
Yeah.
And how many words roughly would like a first draft be?
So anywhere from 80 to 100,000, I think. Yeah. And then the final book weirdly always ends up being like almost exactly 90,000 words. So somewhere in the middle. But there are lots of words lost and lots of new words written in that process.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And sorry,
Rob, go, Chris. No,
I was just going to go into the second question, but if yours is linked,
please do.
Well, this is for all of us. But we'll start with Lucy as our guest. What was your favorite childhood book?
Oh, really great question.
Which area of childhood are we talking here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So many questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess like primary school age.
Oh gosh. So I mean, I love books like I loved I Captured a Castle, Dodie Smith, just because it was this wonderful sort of fantasy of this kind of mad family with the dad, the writer. There's such a great image of a writer as well. Like, think about it sometimes when I have sort of slight writer's block, and I think he's just sitting up there in like the top of this sort of tumble down castle where he's supposedly sort of, you know, meant to be kind of keeping the family afloat, just writing the cat sat on the mat on his typewriter. But it's just such a wonderful book, such great characters. Like, I think my favorite books are always kind of driven, you know, by character. And they're just so lovable. And she's such a great kind of compassionate writer. You know, you really feel her love for her characters.
That's awesome. What, Chris, do you have an answer off the top of your head?
When I read it earlier, the very first series of books that I remember loving was the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
And my school, I think, had about 6, and me and my friend used to just rotate. Like, as soon as I'd finish, he'd take one, and it's the first thing I remember being like obsessed with, and the first set of books that I really look forward to reading the next one. So I think that's probably where it all started. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I find this really hard to answer because I think there are a couple of real like landmark texts for me during those formative years that really like blossomed and ignited something within me. I really like the Bog Whoppet. Do you remember the Bog Whoppet?
Yes.
I really like that. Then when I was slightly older, I've got it with me here, is R.L. Stein's Hit and Run. From the Point Horror series.
Oh, I loved Point Horror.
They were so good, weren't they?
And Goosebumps.
Yeah. Like,
so
I remember
good.
reading this at like 10 or 11 and being like, oh my God, people can die. And they can die horribly. And that suddenly was like very... and then I'll... What great fortune having this question answered. I've got these props handy. And then
That's amazing.
Jaws as well. That was like, I read that at 12, and I know it's...
I read it at 12, too early.
I know, and it's way too much going on and too grown up, and oh my God, isn't fiction suddenly absolutely amazing?
Yeah.
I read Lord of the Flies way too early as well. I think I was like 10 or 11, and I was like, I think I'd run out of all, it was on a family holiday somewhere, and I'd run out of all my books, and I found this old copy of it and ended up oh my goodness. And I can still, the atmosphere of that book, I think the way things affect you when you're a child, you know, you sort of, it really gets inside your head.
I reread it recently. It's really good.
Yes,
like legitimately
so good.
it is a classic for a reason.
So
There's a hot take. Lord of the Flies is actually good.
With Goosebumps, I really remember, probably I was about 9, and my auntie used to take me out on a Sunday, and she was only probably just past her driving test, and she bought me a Goosebumps book, and I was reading it in the car on the way home, and she grabbed my leg. And I instantly cried because I absolutely shat myself.
because you were so in the.
Yeah, and I've got it's the one, there's a sponge on it lived under the sink. I can't remember what it's called, but
Yeah.
I've got a copy of it in my school. Like, I work in a school, Lucy, and I've got that book on my bookshelf. So every time I walk past it, I'm like taken back to that moment where she's scared to live in.
Can you not quite look at it? Are you like,
It's quite a nice memory, because I think maybe that's where this all started. But yeah, at the time, it absolutely. Yeah.
That thrill,
Yeah.
There was so much invention and like gleeful imagination in those books.
Yeah.
Just like grotty, but fun grotty. I don't understand. It was really weird. It was grim, but really, really fun at the same time.
And you just kind of consume them. And I remember going and getting them from the library. Like, I have such strong memories of that, just like the smell of the books in the library.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have to hide these in here in the office, because the kids like the covers and they want to, like this. Look, this is so sad, but look at that. Like, that is really clinging on for dear life.
Oh no!
Like, I've got it. Yeah, it's dreadful. I'm gonna have to put it behind some glass, like in case of emergency, in case of reading slump, break the glass.
Definitely.
That's really so. Sorry, you mentioned a reading slump, Lucy. Is there a book that you, if you are in a slump, that you go back to?
Oh, good question.
Oh, if I'm going to read it, oh gosh. I mean, I go back to my Agatha Christie's, both in kind of reading and writing slumps, I guess. I sort of, as a writer, I go back to them to ask myself, when I'm asking myself, what would Agatha do? Let's see what she do. Because, as a writer, there's so little fat on her plotting. It's just brilliantly kind of concise. As a reader, just for the satisfaction of that kind of that puzzle. And I think what's amazing about her books is that you can read them knowing the solution and still get a huge amount of satisfaction out of it, because you're sort of marveling at the way she did it.
Do you have a favorite?
So I would say, and then there were none, because I love how dark that book is. If anyone ever says to me Agatha Christie's a cozy crime writer, I just say, go read that book, because it's really brutal. And I think perhaps that's something to do with not having a sleuth figure in it. In some ways, I love Poirot, I love Miss Marple, but I think removing the sleuth makes it feel much more kind of raw and sort of fraught. And it's this real sense of kind of just desserts and like people's pasts catching up with them, and that's all stuff I'm kind of interested in writing about. I also love Endless Night for its kind of unreliable narrator. Oh gosh, I could choose so many different books. Pale Horse is brilliant. Love that kind of weird pagan stuff going on in that.
Awesome. And are we allowed to know anything about the story you've written for the Agatha Christie collection, or not?
No, absolutely. So in a way, there's quite a lot of that kind of weird pagan stuff going on in it. So there is a sort of torchlit procession, which relates to this sort of, so that the town is kind of very much inspired by kind of East Sussex, where I kind of grew up, and these sort of weird historical kind of celebrations. I don't know if you call them that, but a bit like bonfire night. But this sort of commemorates the sort of burning of these kind of martyrs in the town square, but basically it's just an excuse for people to get to kind of have a bit of a party, drink a bit too much, kind of light some torches and march through the town, and the sort of really sinister connotations that takes on. So they're all kind of dressed as cardinals, like in sort of red cloaks and things. So I had a lot of fun with that. It's called, hopefully this won't change, it's called Evil in Small Places. So it's about this idea that actually, while you kind of read in the papers about sort of all these terrible things happening in the cities, kind of murders and robbings and all of that, that actually per head there's sort of more nasty stuff going on in small towns and villages, because everyone knows everyone else's business. There's sort of that gossip. There's kind of, frankly, it's like the devil makes work for idle hands. It's kind of a lack of other things to do, especially in sort of Miss Marple's time. There wasn't kind of Netflix. You went around doing evil instead. And to me, that sort of taps right into the heart of kind of Miss Marple canon, really. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun writing it.
That sounds
such
awesome.
a great title, that.
Yeah.
Title. Yeah. I mean, and it fits. Like, if you told me that was a title in that particular anthology, I'd be like, well, that that works.
Great.
That's so great. And the I mean, what about the research of the paganism and all that kind of stuff, and small village evil doing? I mean, can you even research that kind of thing?
Well, to be honest, I just asked my parents, because they live in a small village. Weird stuff goes on. I'm not joking. They have like a wassailing ceremony in the village. So they have it's like a pagan ceremony. I think it's like the turning of the year or something, and they all drink out of this cup and pass it around, and it's really weird. But I love all that stuff. I love I'm actually kind of rereading Karen Maitland's The Owl Killers at the moment, which is sort of dark ages, small town, village, hamlet, what would it be back in the dark ages, like Hamlet, pagan goings on. So there are these figures called, I think they just call themselves the Owls. So they're kind of like the village elders that dress themselves up as owls. It's deeply, deeply sinister, but brilliant.
I've just added it to my list.
Yeah, could we get that title again, please, Lucy?
The Owl Killers by Karen Maitland.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, looks great.
Is that one, because the cover's so distinctive, isn't it?
Yeah, really cool
cover. I recognize
cover.
it immediately. Yeah, fabulous.
Really recommend it.
That kind of atmosphere, though, is, I love that kind of stuff, and I love secret stuff that's going on behind, closed curtains and stuff like that. Like things going grotty in plain sight. That's twice in 5 minutes I've used the word grotty. I'm obviously going to
word grotty.
And this might bring us back as a nice segue to the Paris apartment, because like we planned it. The apartment block, and it was almost like a character by itself. And when I was reading it, I was wondering, is it based somewhere real, or is this just from your imagination?
So it is actually quite heavily based on somewhere real. When I had the idea for the Paris apartment, actually, I was working on a draft of the guest list. So something I like to do is like go and book a cheap Airbnb somewhere and just like to focus on the writing and not be distracted by like my pile of laundry or like, the state of my desk, any of that, just kind of go and focus. And so I'd done that with, it's obviously much more possible before COVID, but anyway, before COVID and having a baby, which I've now done. But I'd done that with the guest list, and I was staying in this kind of wonderfully creepy Parisian apartment in which nothing had changed, I think, for like half a century. So like all the appliances were really retro, and it was brilliant. It had beautiful bones. It was like really high ceilings and wooden floors and like big windows looking onto a central courtyard. And I would hear all these really strange sounds coming from the apartment above me, like first thing in the morning, last thing at night, like something being dragged around, something heavy. And obviously the thriller writer in me thought, something's going on here. This is kind of exciting in a really dark way. I want to tell this story. I'm sure they were just moving furniture. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure I shouldn't have called the police or anything. So that was the kind of germ of the idea. And I think a lot of aspects of that building sort of fed wholesale into the book. So like those kind of energy saving light switches that you sort of can hear the timer clicking down, and you're going to be plunged into darkness. But at the same time, I wanted to kind of use a lot of artistic license and add kind of other elements in. So like the secret staircase. I don't think that's too spoilery. Secret staircase, and kind of the old maids' quarters at the top of the apartment building. All of which exist in lots of Parisian apartment buildings, and possibly did exist in the building I was staying in. I just never got the chance to explore them. but things like that, and the carve, the kind of basement underneath the building, which has its own kind of identity. But I wanted to do something kind of really gothic with the building and make it feel like a character in its own right.
Yeah,
definitely.
that really came across.
Definitely happened. Definitely happened.
Thank you.
I know it feels a bit like we've gone about this in a really weird way. And a reminder here, listeners, we are the slickest operation in town. But our listeners really do enjoy hearing the coming to publication story. So how did it all start for you?
Right. So I was working as an editor at the time, quite a junior editor. And I never really thought that writing was something I could actually do. I'd always loved like creative writing, exercises at school, stuff like that. But I hadn't done any kind of serious writing aside from that. I just loved reading and loved books. And that's how I got into publishing. But I think there was something about working in publishing and kind of, you literally spend your whole days surrounded by people talking about stories. It's amazing. It's like just talking about kind of made up stuff, and that's what you do for a living, and it's just brilliant. And I think there was something about that felt kind of really creative and inspiring and kind of freeing. And there was also the fact that you're sort of working with books at every stage of the publishing process. So you're working with that first draft that comes in and needs loads of work. And I think that made the whole thing seem less intimidating as well. So I just kind of thought I'd have a go myself. But I don't think I really kind of thought I'm going to set out to write a novel. I just had these characters. So it's the opposite of what I try and do now, which is try and plot and then, start writing. I just had these characters whose voices I heard in my head a lot. And so I wanted to start kind of writing about them. And so lots of little kind of bits and pieces that I did from their perspectives, and suddenly I started to feel like it was something more than just these two characters. There was this kind of story forming, and after a while I had the beginnings of a book. So that's the sort of writing bit, and then I had to find an agent, all of that. But I think working in the industry and being quite junior in the industry and quite intimidated, I really didn't want to send the book to anyone that I'd actually worked with professionally. So I sent it to agents that I'd sort of admired from afar, but hadn't actually had any sort of professional interaction with, and just crossed my fingers.
Amazing.
And it's worked out pretty well.
Yes. I think, because we enjoy hearing that thing as well, don't we? It's always wonderful to hear how these great things have happened.
It's funny thinking back to it, isn't it? Do you find that thinking back to?
Yeah, I'm about to hit my it is this year. It's this Christmas would be 10 years of trying to do this. So it was Christmas 2012 when I started. Right, I wrote a book in the 6 weeks before Christmas. So it's to think about it like that it's weird because it's a source of happiness, of pride, of like looking at yourself like, what a weirdo. You devoted a decade of your life to making stuff up, but it's just been so great. And like these moments, like you were saying there a minute ago, Lucy, about how we're talking about stories. We're talking about stuff that one of us have made up, and it's great. It's wonderful. It's the best. And you said it as well. The pinch me stuff. This is pinch me stuff. It's so good. As if this is work, really.
Totally. But it is sort of, and it is kind of. It's funny you say, thinking about giving up 10 years to it, because it is sort of an obsession as well. Like I don't really feel comfortable when I'm not writing. There are days where it's hard and it's difficult, but like if I have a day, when I don't do it, I feel a little bit itchy. I don't know if that's a good thing.
I know what you mean, and because you have to have a compulsiveness, I think, to your character to do this. I think, and especially to do it so many times that you end up getting published. I mean, because that's the hardest thing, isn't it? It's just such a stubborn journey, isn't it, that you have to put yourself on.
Totally.
And I don't think that that moment as well either is the moment that you become an author. I think you're an author the minute that you you write anything, anything.
100%, 100%. Yeah, totally. Because the rest is based on a lot of like subjective judgment and luck and right place, right time. It's it's not a way by which to kind of judge your authorness.
No, it's not.
I don't think that's a very good word, but
I think we're going to rubber stamp it. It's authorness is a word. I was really uncomfortable calling myself an author at all until maybe a couple of years ago. Like really like felt icky, like I hadn't earned it or anything like that. It was really weird.
I've had exactly that. It feels like a very grand word. It's got like a very kind of rounded sound to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Chris, is it?
Well, I was just going to ask one last question, if that's okay, and then we'll play a game if that's up for a game.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, let's do
it. wait till you hear what the game is first.
Oh no, I'm a bit nervous.
With the guest list being picked as a Reese Witherspoon pick, I was just interested to know like what the sort of process was. Like, did you get to meet her, or were you involved in that, or was that sort of all from afar?
No, that was all. I mean, that all happened kind of during COVID. So it was quite strange. It felt like really exciting and simultaneously quite kind of intangible because it was all happening like on the other side of the world. I woke up because obviously in the States, like, they're still working when we're going to bed. So I woke up to this email from my editor just saying, just the subject line was Reese is calling. And I was like, what? Reese? Who? What? And then I was like, can't be that Reese, not Reese Witherspoon. And that was such an exciting email to get. And that was just like, she's picked it for her book club. I don't think there's, I think there's a lot of kind of mystique around the way they pick the books. She just genuinely picks books that she's read or wants to read, and
that's so cool.
Discuss with people.
Did you get to like talk to her or anything?
I didn't actually get an interview with Reese directly, which is very sad, but she did this wonderful piece about the book, which was just like still kind of a total pinch me moment. And I got to kind of take over her channel and talk about
that's cool.
things, and that was really cool. It was a wild ride.
How great is it that we've got people like Reese Witherspoon championing reading?
Yeah,
fantastic.
I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it?
And
all the things she could do with her platform, she's doing that with it. It's so great.
Totally. What a legend.
I know, what an absolute legend. Sensational. I think it's a first for us as well, Chris. I'm not. Have we had a Reese Witherspoon's book pick on here before?
No, you're our first.
There you go.
We're going up in the world.
I know. We made it, dude.
No offense to all the other authors that have been on.
Amazing authors. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is like episode 80 or something.
Yeah. Right, our game. So we play a game called the 1 star game. Or I guess it's 1 star or 5 star now. But I don't know if we've got an official name for it after all these episodes, Do we?
I don't know.
No. Anyway, so what I've done is I've looked at someone who has given you a 1 star review, and then I've delved into what else they've reviewed to see what type of person they are. Okay. So you just have to decide, and we're going with a slight twist this week. Usually it's 1 star or 5 star, but this week it's 2 star or 5 star because the reviews were incredible. She's my new favorite person, or he. I don't know who it was.
The reviewer.
Aside from giving your book a 1 star, which obviously I hate about her, the rest of
do you know? I much prefer as an author. I much prefer a 1 star to like a 3 star or like a 2 star because my worst review ever was middle of the road. I still think about that one when I can't sleep at night. It's like, just hate it or love it. Don't. Oh no. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
The worst, I think, is when they give a star but no.
I know.
Or like a 1 star but no justification. At least tell me what's wrong with it,
please. Yeah.
So I've picked 2 other things that they've reviewed, and you just have to tell me whether it's this week 2 star or 5 star. So the first one, and usually I don't show you a picture of it, but this week I'm going to because it's nice. This laptop bag.
Oh,
$17.99.
pretty good price point. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
I've carried that. My daughter has that. I can vouch for its quality.
It looks like a good bit of kit. I'm
I
intrigued
can vouch for
to
it.
try it out myself. I'm going to go 5-star.
Okay.
I must say, given that I've held the item, I'm going to say,
It's quality.
It's that time of night again when notes are getting passed under the office door.
Oh.
Oh,
Do you see a little hand?
yeah. It's amazing.
Oh, do you know what? I know what it is. He's wrapped up a marshmallow for me.
That's so cute.
It's so sweet.
What a guy. I'm giving thumbs up to a door that's shut. anyway, yeah, 5-star. 5-star.
5-star?
Good. This thing's good, yeah.
So you're both on the same page? 2-star.
No.
And the reason it's 2-star, right? So if this had happened to me, I'd given it 1-star easily. So zip failure, little use. Didn't expect too much for the money, but the zip failed after 2 weeks of light use. The laptop inside it crashed onto a concrete floor and cracked the screen.
No!
Surely that is a 1-star.
The 2nd star was really generous. Yeah. That's horrendous.
I shouldn't have had anything to drink while we did that.
That's horrible.
So,
that is not my experience with said product.
No.
So,
what is light use?
Well, I don't know.
So my question is, what did my book do to them to give it 1?
If this can smash up their technology and still get 2 stars.
Genuinely a bit worried about it.
So yeah, so cracked laptop, 2 stars. Which leads us on to the second item, which are 3 wild cherry trees.
What?
40 to 60 centimeter stem things.
What? You can buy that off Amazon?
Yeah, apparently
That's
so.
amazing.
You could buy.
Or is it?
What, these are.
Yes.
These are real cherry trees.
Yeah, 3 of them for $19.99.
Do we have a picture? Can we see? Oh, I suppose this is audio only. But...
I mean, we need all the help we can get here, I think.
I didn't take a screenshot of that one, but I'll go look
I'm gonna have to
afterwards.
find that myself. Yeah.
I'll send you the link after and read. So 2-star or 5-star?
I feel
anything else 1-star apart from Lucy's book.
I don't know.
Oh no!
Put me on the spot, Rob.
This is bringing me down to earth with a bump. No. I'm gonna say 2 stars for these. I bet it's not. I bet it's fine. But I just feel like if you ordered a cherry tree off Amazon, it could go horribly wrong. I feel like you could get like a doll's house cherry tree or like, I don't know, all sorts of weird things.
Yeah.
How does it arrive? I mean, it's a living thing. Like, how does it? You can't just whack in a box
in like an Amazon box.
Yeah. How? And they're left on your doorstep upside down or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I don't. 5 stars. Yeah, I'm gonna go all in. 5 stars. Why not?
5 stars. Looked worrying, but actually great. 5 stars.
Yes.
Then
Looked worrying. Done so many questions.
There's something that I think here should have been 4-star because she has a moan in the middle. So she says, arrived shrink wrapped, 3 sticks. Don't know what that means. My husband asked me why we were buying sticks now. It took me absolutely ages to get the plastic off because it was so tight, but eventually I did. So it doesn't read like a 5-star, does it just yet?
No.
There were 3 sticks sticks is in inverted commas, with a good, moist, muddy root at the end. I could see some nubs of buds on the stem, so I was hopeful. I soaked the roots and planted them in a good quality compost, bought separately, watered daily, and they're growing nicely. 3 trees for $9.99, sorry, not 19. You can't beat it. This is a perfect new plant for our wildflower garden and will fit in perfectly. Very happy.
So that's actually amazing. Like 3 trees for.
I
need the link.
£9.99. Blimey.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a bit too much information. I mean, this reviewer needs an editor. Really. But my husband said, "Are we buying sticks now?" Crucial to the review.
There's a bit of backstory.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'm here for that kind of character development in a reviewer.
Me too.
I'm here for that.
So yeah, that's the type of people that are reading your books.
Wow. I'm kind of honoured.
Yeah, as you should be.
Maybe not by the 1 star.
I've just gone onto the thing, and they're only showing pictures of the cherries in each one. So,
but those are 5-star cherries. If they got those off their tree.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
that's the promotional photo. I don't know.
And it's gone up in price as well, presumably off the back of the 5-star review.
Mm-hmm.
Word of mouth is red hot
Yeah.
on this particular thing. Fabulous. Lucy, we like to ask what our guests are reading at the minute. What are you reading at the moment?
Oh, so I'm reading the latest in Ellie Griffith's Ruth Galloway series, and it's called The Locked Room. And I'm trying to make it last as long as possible because she writes one of these a year, and I love them, and I love like revisiting these characters, and yeah, I could just spend lots of time in their company, and it's all going to be over too soon. But it's fascinating because it's actually set during lockdown 2020. So it feels quite kind of traumatic to go back there. And there aren't many writers that would persuade me to go back there, but Ellie Griffiths is one of them. But it's such a brilliant series. So Dr. Ruth Galloway is a forensic archaeologist, and she sort of helps the police with their sort of investigations, and there's always a kind of historic cold case alongside a more modern case, so there's some great sort of archaeology history geekery in there, which I love. And the Norfolk setting is so atmospheric. It's brilliant.
It's an enduringly brilliant series, isn't it?
It's so good. Yeah,
so cool. Chris, what about you? What are you reading?
I am reading really slowly at the minute. It's like coming up to the end of term, so there's just like loads of work to do that I just fallen behind. But I am reading John Barlow's To the Grave, which is the second in the series. I read Right to Kill last year, and it was incredible. Sort of a new detective series. Joe Romano, The Man Can Write, and yeah, it's really good. I'm when you're like frustrated because you really want to spend time with it, and life gets in the way. So that's where I am at the minute. But yeah, it's great, really great.
Brilliant.
Cool.
What about you?
I am reading The Guilty Couple, which is Callie Taylor's new one.
Love Callie.
The ooh is well deserved as well. Super twisty serpentine. I don't know what's happening next, but I know I'm loving it. I'm awful for giving away spoilers, so I'm going to shut my mouth. But this is gonna be mega. It's gonna be a mega smash. Awesome.
Fantastic!
Absolutely awesome.
Definitely gonna read that next.
Yeah. Cool.
Go and buy the Paris apartment.
Go and buy this.
Thank you.
Thing.
Sounds good to me.
All the best with it, Lucy. It'll be another smash hit for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this. Great fun.
It's been lovely to meet you.
Love the game.
Thank you for joining.
And hopefully we'll get to meet in real life at some point. Like
hopefully
opening up a bit more, and
We'll say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Hi, I'm Rob.
I'm Simon.
And I'm James.
We want to talk about those movies. Those supposedly bad movies. Those movies that bombed.
To see if they weren't that bad after all, join us every other Tuesday on the For Your Reconsideration podcast, part of the Pod Dojo podcast network.
You can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, and all your usual podcast apps.
And it won't cost you a solitary bean, mate.
It's like it's free.
It's just like it's free.